According to the internet yesterday, the Xbox Series X is running very hot, will burn off your skin, will burn your house down, and leave your pets a crispy mess. But is that really the case of what's going on with this system? And Capcom comments on a Nintendo Switch Pro when talking about Monster Hunter Rise, leading to new speculation about the validity and potential release of this upgraded Nintendo Switch model. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So yesterday there was a very hot story, no pun intended, about the Xbox Series X that I just found to be, well, absolutely stupid. Now, we all know one thing, I'm not a big technical guy, I'm more of the everyday sort of gamer, but I do understand basic enough stuff about how consoles work and whatnot to know that this story just seemed absolutely ridiculous, yet it fueled fanboy wars for absolutely no reason. Now, of course, we all know that Xbox has been sending out preview consoles of the Xbox Series X to many various YouTubers and websites to check out their new system, and some of that information has of course been under embargo as to what they can or really can't say, but we've seen a lot of cool stuff. We've seen how fast games load, we've seen how games are now enhanced on the Xbox Series X without even needing anything to be done by the developers of these games. The games are just natively enhanced on this system, which I think is a very impressive thing. But basically yesterday, two people of the hundreds of people that have their hands on an Xbox Series X had to say some things about the heat that the system emits when running and doing certain things. One of the individuals using the term that it could potentially heat up his flat, meaning apartment, and now the internet has lost their absolute minds thinking that the system is going to overheat or something like that. Now, first off, these are very early systems, which could potentially mean that it's not entirely the final design of the thing as far as the innards are concerned. They may have made these systems kind of in a hurry to get them out there to people, so it's not necessarily indicative of the final product. But even if it was indicative of the final product, expelling heat from the Xbox Series X means that the cooling system in the system is working. Now, the design of the Xbox Series X is like a tower, but instead of like a lot of other things like other consoles and PCs where the heat emits through the back of the system, the Xbox Series X is kind of built like a chimney, so the heat comes out of the top of the system. If you put your hand behind your computer or your PS4 or your Xbox One where the ventilation is on the system, guess what? You're going to feel heat coming out of the system. And that's a good thing. You want the heat to be drawing out of whatever it is because it means that the cooling system is working. It's just that in this case with the Xbox Series X, like I said, the heat is coming out of the top, so the heat is coming out in a different direction that people aren't really used to. And honestly, I don't really understand why people have such a hard-on all of a sudden for cooling systems in their consoles. Is this something that's ever really been a main focus, something that people get very excited about? Because all of a sudden with this upcoming console generation, it's one of the hottest topics. Like, oh man, I hope this system just runs like an icebox. And I'm like, okay. Like earlier today, there was a PS5 teardown video, and actually several of my friends made videos on it, and everyone is very excited about this big ass cooling fan and thermal paste being used in the console. And I'm like, why? Does the PlayStation 5 play games? Is it going to break? Like, great, I want the system to function and not burn down my condo, don't get me wrong. So as long as it does that, I really don't care if there's like a hamster spinning a wheel inside the thing to emit the heat. As long as the cooling system is working, that's all that matters. And obviously, the cooling system is working on these new consoles. There's a big ass fan in the PlayStation 5. The Xbox Series X has the heat emitting from the top of it. So yes, you probably saw a bunch of videos of people talking about how the Xbox Series X is potentially going to overheat and burn down your house and all this nonsense. And I just wanted to share my thoughts on it. If you disagree with me, that's cool. If stuff like, you know, cooling systems inside of consoles really excites you, like, that's awesome. I totally respect that. But I feel like, and I'm being really low with this estimation, that like 90% of people are like me and don't necessarily care. As long as it runs, as long as it functions the way it should, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. And of course, there has been a lot of buzz about the Nintendo Switch Pro, or a Nintendo Switch revision. We just call it a Nintendo Switch Pro because it's easier to say that. I feel like we seem to talk about this every few days or so because new information comes along, a developer says something, new information is revealed by Nintendo, there's more hypotheses and theories, new retailers are listing stuff as well, but I really feel like something is coming in 2021 when it comes to this. Nintendo themselves have said that they are working on new systems to elongate the Nintendo Switch's life cycle with cutting edge technology. It's something that I've repeated a million different times, but I do feel like a Nintendo Switch revision is coming in 2021, and it'll be a stronger revision, either more than likely using things like DLSS from NVIDIA, which of course makes the NVIDIA Tegra chip. Like I said, we've talked about this a million times, but I always find it interesting when companies are put on the hot seat and asked about their games that are coming to the Nintendo Switch. And one game that was announced and revealed very recently was of course Monster Hunter Rise, and let's be realistic, Monster Hunter Rise is already one of the best looking Nintendo Switch games by far. The trailer itself looked absolutely awesome, but at Tokyo Game Show we actually got a more in-depth look at the actual gameplay, and there's tons of effects and things going on in this game that you normally don't really see in a lot of Nintendo Switch games. Things like water effects, such as the water reacting to the character and reflections off of the water. Things like the monsters themselves having like a breathing apparatus that seems very realistic to the way they breathe and their stomach expanding and whatnot. In this gameplay, we saw a lot of very impressive things. Now, of course, this is running on the RE engine, and this is the first Nintendo Switch game that will be running on the RE engine, but a lot of people, myself included, felt, is this running on the standard Nintendo Switch? Like, this looks very impressive. Maybe Capcom knows something more and is doing something more. You got to remember, supposedly during the development of the Nintendo Switch, Capcom was very vocal with Nintendo on what they wanted the Nintendo Switch to be capable of doing. One of those things, of course, being having enough RAM so that they could put the RE engine on the system. Well, in an interview yesterday with Eurogamer, Capcom actually responded to some sort of Nintendo Switch Pro rumors. What was this game running on? Was it running on a standard Nintendo Switch or something more? And I thought the answer was very interesting. So basically what they said was Monster Hunter Rise was all running on Switch. Everything you saw at Tokyo Game Show. Obviously, we had no idea whatsoever what the plan would be in that direction of a new or a revamped Switch. But even at the moment, you actually have two different Switch hardwares you're targeting. You've got the original Switch, which has the docking mode. So that's something we've already borne in mind to make sure the game isn't making any undue assumptions on the hardware owned by the player. As to those kinds of plans on Nintendo side, we can't speak to those at all. We're trying to make the game work as best as it can on whichever Switch you have. So I think that is a very, very interesting response to this situation, and it sort of leads me to believe that Capcom knows more than they're leading on with this. They left the door very wide open. They could have just said something like, oh no, this is designed with the Switch and the Switch Lite in mind, and you know, that's it, that's all there is to it. But they're definitely leaving the door open by saying things like, we didn't know about any plans that would be going in that direction. We can't speak to those at all of what Nintendo is doing. So I really feel like this game is probably indicative of what you are seeing on a standard Nintendo Switch, but I feel like it could potentially be enhanced if a Nintendo Switch Pro does indeed come in 2021, like many people are expecting it to. Industry analysts, different people on Bloomberg, everyone seems to believe that the Nintendo Switch Pro will be coming in 2021, and I think it would be an interesting time frame for it. And I think a game like Monster Hunter Rise and Balan Wonderland are two games that are being designed for the Nintendo Switch that would really take advantage of the additional hardware. Balan Wonderland is of course pretty much being designed with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X in mind, and then being ported to other systems as well, such as the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. So I don't know, this is a very interesting answer by Capcom with this situation, and I think it's just going to lead more fuel to the speculation fire, and not the fire that their Xbox Series X is going to cause, because it's evidently going to burn down your house. But let me know in the comment section down below what you think about Capcom's answer to the Nintendo Switch Pro situation. Alright, so that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comment section down below. Are you afraid of your Xbox Series X burning down the house? That's a good song. And of course, what do you think about Capcom sort of dodging the Nintendo Switch Pro question and leaving that door pretty much wide open? And as always, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.